Hey guys, Shock back here again with another video. So as everyone already knows, I'm most sure of, Phase 3 has been announced. It's actually coming in just a few days. And I wasn't initially going to really do like sort of a video on any of the new stuff, like new raid, new items, new runes. Basically everybody knows that these things are coming and nobody really knows what they are going to look like until they come. So I was feeling like too much speculation, like probably wasn't needed, or too much theory crafting beforehand. However, after a second thought, I've like sort of looked at all the data mining stuff, everything Blizzard has already announced, and there's obviously like a tons of other videos on the YouTube in terms of reaction and breakdown and discussions and all that about the new stuff coming out. However, there's actually like tons of things changing for enhancement Shaman, and I know a lot of those things aren't like super confirmed yet. But I just wanted to do like sort of a theory crafting discussion video on the changes coming up, how things are changing for us, specifically in terms of itemization, because I feel like this is going to be probably the biggest difference, as well as the new rules, both the confirmed and the data mined ones, and basically how our gameplay in Phase 3 is probably going to look like from basically everything that we have as information currently, which again includes official confirmed stuff as well as data mined stuff. So if you don't want to like get yourself too spoiled, I'll sort of be mentioning as I go the different sections and the different places where there will be spoilers, really, if these things do come out as data mined, right? So let's just get straight into it. And to be fair, like the first point is not in game, but actually over to Wildhead, right? So I guess again, let's start off with the major one, the big one. I feel like the biggest change. And again, spoiler warning here, big one. These are the data mined class changes coming out with Phase 3, obviously with the launch, and how those things are impacting Shamans, right? So if we're actually going to the changes for Shaman specifically, there's potentially some aura modifiers, potentially scaling modifiers. It says here flurry, time duration, shield spec. Those things we don't really know until they're like sort of in game. So let's gloss over that. Nothing changed on decoy and Maelstrom, and now we're coming into the first massive change, and this is the spirit of the Alpha rune. Now, everybody that's seen probably a couple of my previous videos would know that I've been saying that enhancement Shaman is increasingly like just getting buffed. Initially again with the first few rounds of changes, and then in Phase 2 I mean, right, and then all the new gear, and as soon as like most Shamans like sort of picked up on all that gear, it was pretty clear that Shaman is like pretty much the most broken class in the game. It was the best DPS, it still is the best DPS. So if I go in any form of like sort of end of Phase 2 DPS rankings, both enhancement tank and enhancement DPS are outperforming everything else in the game, pretty much, right, on average. So and the main power spike did come from Spirit of the Alpha, which is the initial change, or rather the introduction of, actually the change, right? Because they initially made it to be just Salvation, and then they added a flat 20% attack power bonus to it if you do not cast it on yourself. Which is crazy, which is still crazy, which I would keep saying, giving somebody or a melee class like 20% flat something as attack power, or casters, imagine 20% flat intellect, like it's just gonna break the game, right? So Blizzard are good to do a change here. I'm maining enhancement, and I've been saying that we're just too good right now. So and this change, to be fair, if we actually just look what exactly is being changed from flat 20% attack power, they're basically saying that we're now going to be doing 5% more physical damage. That's physical only, underline that, and then actually additionally reducing our threat by 30%. And obviously you can't have both alpha and beta at the same time, right? And the alpha is just the flat tank threat, right? The salvation thingy, or equivalent of it. So I feel like this change is really good. Like it makes sense. Like I've always hated when, like, especially if you're pugging or so, and you're like on a very geared enhancement, and like your tank is like maybe a new guy or more casual guy, or just a note without too much gear, for the enhancement to just constantly keep pulling aggro, or on the flip side just having to not do damage whatsoever and like wait for like 15 seconds upwards on boss encounters and phase changes, because like you're gonna repagro and die, right? Like so you don't want this to ever happen. So this threat reduction is just welcome, and then the change from 20% attack power to 5% physical damage done is noticeable. Like I don't think I can quite sort of convert 20% attack power into actual flat percentage damage done. However, obviously attack power does like modify our physical damage, so in that sense the change is not being like different, aside from I feel like sheer numbers and just sheer amount of damage we're gonna be pumping out. In the case of 20% attack power, that was scaling really nicely with like all the gear, with the rock biters and all that. Whereas now it's just going to be flat percent damage increase, right? So again, I don't think there's too much like need to like delve deep into this. This is just basically flat damage reduce or damage done reduce, right? And then the other threat. So that's super cool. I'm all down for it, and I think it's a good change. Moving down, we're also getting Lava Lash nerfed / changed, or really nerfed. They're making it so the instant damage you deal with your offhand is from 150% to 100% of your offhand weapon damage, which I believe they initially buffed. Now they're reverting or sort of nerfing that, so that's fine. But the interesting bit is where they're actually now increasing the extra damage if your weapon is increased with enhanced, with Flame Tongue. From 50 to 125. So this is fine. Like I still don't know if Flame Tongue will be good enough. Like I've always sort of wanted Flame Tongue to be good enough, but it sort of never has been. And especially comparing it in the offhand slot to Rock Biter, which just gives so much attack power. And like this is like, if you think about it, even in original classic, like Rock Biter was never good, because like you'd always use Wind Fury on your two-hander, and even in the rare cases where like Flame Tongue could be nice, you'd still use that. Rock Biter has always been neglected, but now as we're in Season of Discovery, and especially for dual wielding, the sheer amount of attack power Rock Biter gives you is just too good, right? So I still don't know if that's good enough for you to put Flame Tongue in your offhand. It might end up being good enough. I'll be fine if it does get good enough, but currently probably this change is not too impactful. Obviously the damage reduced on Lava Lash is also fine, because I feel like this maybe wasn't necessarily overtuned, and I don't know if both nerfs are gonna necessarily contrast or sort of tank us down in the DPS rankings turbo much because of a rune incoming, but let's just keep moving. Again, this is a fine change, right? And then actually the other like massive one, big one, crazy change. So Shamans and tanking Shamans like were starting to feel a lot like Fury Prot in Classic WoW, where like you just do a wield with a couple of like defensive talents or whatever, like a couple of more defensive pieces of items, and then everything else is just turbo pump, turbo damage. You are basically just a full DPS that was essentially just tanking the boss, right? And this was the case for enhancement Shamans until now, and is no longer / probably never going to be the case again, because they've changed Way of Earth to require you to have a shield equipped. Now I feel like this is fine, this is good. Like this will definitely like sort of remove the whole enhancement tanking being the best tank and also being like the 6th best DPS or something like that situation from the game, which a lot of people aren't too happy about. It will also make tanking on a Shaman a lot more, I feel like, engaging, as in you actually have to change runes, maybe get a couple of different pieces of gear that you wouldn't necessarily have if you were just enhancement, pretending to tank or tanking in Gnomergan, right? And then also maybe you're now looking into more of an intellect spell power set like we were mainly doing at the end of phase 1, compared to just swapping Earth, Rock Biter and Wind Fury on your main and offhand, changing Shamanistic Rage to Way of Earth, and then becoming tank on the spot, right? Because that's essentially how Gnomergan tanking went for a lot of people such as me. So in that sense, I feel like the change is good. It's also, I guess, kind of nice for like AoE tanking and as in like dungeon farming later on, where you would definitely be wearing a shield, and then now Way of Earth actually makes more sense to have. Although again, for simply farming purposes, like I've done a video on SFK and potentially some future ones, Earth Shield maybe just outscales the pants rune really in terms of usability and flexibility. So yeah, nothing again too much more to add to Way of Earth. Basically requiring a shield. This will change Shaman tanking a lot, might make it a whole lot less viable, simply because blocking attacks, and especially relying to get mana back from your chest rune when blocking attacks is really hard. And as a shaman tank with Molten Blast and a shield, you get to him very fast. So again, we'll have to see how this gets, how much this change impacts like the tanking scene. But I feel like it will a lot, considering there will no longer be dual wielding shamans, right? Cool. Let's move over to the runes, the actual juicy bits. And obviously we'll be keeping in mind the Spirit of Alpha and Lava Lash changes as we go along, discussing DPS going forward. Now, confirmed phase 3 runes, nothing spoilery here. This is obviously what have been confirmed by Blizzard. We get a Riptide on Bracers. So first of all, we get 2 slots, Bracers and Helms, to put runes on, so that I feel like means essentially just 2 new runes, right, per slot. Or overall, I mean, so that's good. We're not getting any new chest runes or any new runes in previous slots, as far as I know, for the exception of maybe like whatever Warriors Berserker rune slot was on. But again, Shaman wise, Bracer and a Helm, and confirmed runes, Riptide, the healing ability, increases your next, buffs your next chain heal and all that, triggers Ancestral Awakening, that's good stuff. I've actually healed for the majority of WoW Classics re-release, where I was like in a guild doing like speedruns and whatnot as a Shaman, which meant healing only. So I do feel for rest Shamans out there, and definitely with abilities such as Riptide and getting our full toolkit and full talents by level 60, I feel like Rest Shaman will be definitely good healer. So that's a good ability, and I will be trying it out. And now the elephant in the room, the rune that probably got a lot of people scratching their heads and potentially like straight out like raging, because on the surface this mental dexterity rune looks really good, right? So what does it say? Dealing damage with your melee weapons increases your attack power by 100% of your intellect, and your spell damage and healing by 30% of your attack power, and this is above the last 1 minute. Now, where to start off with this one, right? So first of all, you gotta consider the fact that Spirit of the Wolf no longer gives you attack power. So the extra like sort of spell damage of the attack power of Spirit of the Wolf should Spirit of the Alpha should Spirit of the Alpha have not been changed, will not be like relevant, right? And then also consider that this is a buff that stays for 1 minute, and then I'm assuming, because it doesn't say that additional like, I guess, like procs are not refreshing the duration like it says on a lot of different abilities in WoW, I'm assuming that essentially as soon as this procs the first time in a boss fight, right, you have it 100% of the time, right? So I feel like this might be an assumption and it might not quite work like that, but I feel like this is essentially passively Blizzard saying, okay, so we've changed your alpha thing a bit, we do want to give you something exciting and new, and although not exciting, this is essentially just scaling power. This means the more intellect you get, the more attack power you get, the more attack power you get, and the more spell damage you get, right? So this is just infinite scaling, if you will. And if we consider that this will be 100% up at any given boss as soon as it procs once, until of course the boss is dead or you die, right? I feel like this is changing Shaman enhancement Shaman's itemization like a lot. And what I mean by this is that essentially, if you understand that 100% of your intellect will always be attributed to your attack power, that means that when you're looking at items, essentially every single intellect equates to 1 attack power, right? So if we'll get to some pre-BIS and BIS sets and whatnot in a second as well, right? But this basically means that if an item gives you 10 strength and 10 intellect, the 10 strength is 20 attack power, but then also the 10 intellect is also 10 attack power, so that item would essentially be giving you 30 attack power, which is interesting, which is nice. Like obviously there's the added bonus of the intellect that it gives you mana and it gives you spell crit. Now the spell crit I feel like is going to be like a lot less relevant, because you're not going to be stacking intellect by no means, unless there's like some crazy item set that you can figure out for like Spell Hans Shaman, but again, for that you really need Elemental Devastation, which means like you are not going to be able to do that until level 60. So in that sense, like the added bonuses of the intellect in terms of, again, mana pool and spell crit are nice, they're welcome. On longer fights you might actually feel like the extra mana is good, although Shamanistic Rage generally covers that. So yeah, and then obviously the second bit of this, where your spell damage and healing are increased by 30% of your attack power, is also very nice. Like, this essentially passively increases the damage of flame shock, the totems, of course, the fire totems, and then of course the Maelstrom procs into lightning bolt and chain lightning. Potentially even lava burst, of course, if for example lava lash ends up being so nerfed, or maybe mental dexterity plus the nerf of lava lash like sort of combined together to make lava burst the new BIS, for stacking 5 Maelstorms and sending lava bursts critting for like 2, 3, 4k, whatever the scaling will end up being. So yeah, like these runes is definitely crazy, it is definitely great. And as you'll see in a second when I go to sort of discuss like a potential Pre-BIS for level 50 before you enter your first Sunken Temple raid, you see that this is considered when picking up items, because again, an intellect now equates attack power, and then obviously the second bit is more of a bonus, so you don't really care, like you're not gonna compromise attack power to give you spell power, just because you're getting the spell power, right? Like, you still go for your hit, your crit, your strength, your overall stats. So yeah, and then spoiler warning, going into the next sort of data mined runes, we don't know if everything if all those are going to be exactly as written in the game, but again, comparing to previous data mines before phase 2, most if not all of the things that were data mined before were in the game in that exact same fashion. So take this with a pinch of salt, but those things are very likely to be in the game as they're written right now. So first of all, overcharged, gained overcharged ability, lightning shield never loses charges, now has 1 second cooldown and deals damage to all enemies within 8 yards. So basically what this is saying is that lightning shield will be proccing obviously when you take damage, without ever having to be replenished. It will do AoE around, and then it will have this 1 second cooldown. This is cool. I feel like this is going to be probably very nice for AoE farming, like again dungeons and all that, especially Zul'Farrak to level 50, as well as just boosting people for gold and all that, because basically it will mean that lightning shield will be a lot less useful, a lot more useful, proccing for a lot of AoE and all that. But again, this is debatable, because obviously this doesn't stack with Earth Shield, and currently at level 40 farming dungeons and solo farming for boosties and all that, Earth Shield is just always the best because it keeps you alive, where this will just do more damage, right? So we'll have to see how this plays out. Potentially a good AoE rune slash farming rune, right? The next one, Rolling Thunder, as well on the Bracer slot. Lightning Bolt and Chain Lightning have 30% chance to add an additional charge on Lightning Shield up to 9. And then Nerd Shock now releases all the charges above 3, dealing their damage to a target and then giving you back mana. So this is pretty good. This feels like a pretty much strictly elemental rune. Simply because you are casting Lightning Bolt and Chain Lightning a lot more as elemental, which basically with this rune you'd probably want to be always stacking up 9 charges before Earth Shocking, which with the reduced cooldown, like obviously you're rotating Flame Shock and Earth Shock, so maybe you do a Flame Shock, the Lava Burst, spam Lightning Bolts until you can Earth Shock for the 9, and then on the next Earth Shock you do the Flame to refresh the duration, which means all the Lightning Bolts in between are again stacking the charges back to 9. Now, I guess, yeah, this would be releasing everything above 3. Now, I don't know if this will be keeping or leaving you back at 3 charges. I assume so. So then you always stack between 3 and 9. And it's not like at 9, when you burst them out, you get to 0, which at this point, like if you'd want the charges back, you'd probably just replenish the Lightning Shield itself for insta 3 charges. But I feel like this is not how it's going to work. It's probably going to tank you down to 3 charges all the time, and then obviously the mana back is good. So yeah, this feels like essentially the elemental rune for the Bracer slot this phase. And it is cool. It's good. It's extra passive damage essentially that sort of gives you this mini game of keeping up with your charges, so that's cool. And then Static Shock. This is the basically enhancement damage rune on Bracer slot. Wait, what did I say? Oh yeah, mental dexterity is on here. Thanks God. 1 second. I was going to cry a bit, right? But Static Shock essentially gives your, again, Lightning Shield. So that's now 3 abilities improving Lightning Shield, or rather 3 runes, right? But Static Shock now has 9 charges, and your melee attacks have 6% chance to trigger one of those charges, immediately damaging your target. this is okay. Doesn't feel like too powerful. Like lightning shield has never been like super crazy good, right? Like if I get into WoW, obviously, you know, let me see. I don't have the talent currently, so let's just see how much at 40. This deals at 40, 114 per bow, right? And you have 3 bows. You can increase this by another 15%. That probably gets to 120, 130. And now if we just check the lightning shield at level 50, it would be 150. 4 damage, which increased by 15%, would get to probably 170 or 80, something of those sorts, right? Quick maths. So basically, this is not going to be like crazy. I also feel like the chance trigger is probably too low. Like, do you really care about it every 6 seconds proccing off like 200 damage? Like you'd almost make a sort of a point that even as enhancement you may go with Rolling Thunder, because obviously you do stack Maelstrom rather quickly. Releasing those would obviously be stacking the charges on your lightning shield anyway, as you have Rolling Thunder charged up to 9 charges, and then even as enhancement you'll be doing the Earth Shock, which, like, again, like, do you feel me? Like, I feel like Rolling Thunder might just end up being better static shock anyway for enhancements as well. But maybe not, right? Maybe static shock does have a place, maybe for enhancement, and maybe like it's 6% chance on melee attacks, but then obviously if you're attacking a lot and very fast, as enhancement do, maybe that just outscales Rolling Thunder for enhancement specifically, right? So yeah, like, we'll have to see how this goes. In all cases, if you do choose to pick static shock, you also have this mini game introduced to yourself where you'd have to keep your lightning shield up, because as you can see here, like with Rolling Thunder, you buff pre-pull, right, or pre-raid, right, pre-pull, and it never like sort of goes down, because like it will sort of recharge itself. Where with static shock you have to be recharging it. So again, like, this is also a global you have to do every now and then. I don't know if it's worthwhile. We'll have to see. And then the final 2 runes very quickly. The burn rune on Helm basically makes flame shock hit 3 targets. This is super nice for AoE. This is probably just the straight up elemental rune here for this slot, which is not great on single target. However, on any form of council fight or trash, this is just crazy, because obviously more flame shocks means more procs on the where was it? The power surge means more lava bursts free, chain lightning's free. So yeah, not bad. It looks nice as well, but like, again, not really for single target PV encounters, so that's a bit sad for elementals. And then Tidal Waves basically makes your Chain Heal and Riptide give you 2 charges of Tidal Wave, reducing the cast time of Healing Wave or the critical chance of Laser Healing Wave. So that's also, again, restoration support, pretty cool, sort of a mini game again introduced to yourself, sweet, keeping up with those stacks, making sure you're never like really doing, like, say 2 chain heals in a row, because you'd be wasting your tidal wave charges. So maybe a chain heal and then a laser riptide, laser. If you're doing the healing on the tank, it's probably just always healing waves, because it's the most efficient one, right? So yeah, from that sense, good new runes here introduced. We've no idea exactly if those will be exactly as written in the game. I feel like static shock, if this is going to be the quote-unquote enhancement rune, is rather underwhelming, so probably needs a bit of a change on that. However, mental dexterity for sure is looking crazy, right? So I feel like, again, even with the Spirit of the Alpha nerf, so let's say if this 20% attack power that we are currently getting probably contribute to about, I'd say 13 to 15% of our overall damage, because generally speaking, enhancement Shaman 70 to 80% of our damage is melee, Wind Fury procs, and Lava Lash, which means with Lava Lash and Spirit of the Wolf nerfed, you're probably losing about, I'd say 15 to 20% of your physical damage is gone now, being offset by obviously the 5 flat percent physical damage, and then mental dexterity, right? And I want to play this sort of mini game, right, guys? Let me show you. So there's a couple of posts here which we'll go over with specific loots in a second, but I currently have, so exactly as my WoW character in game, Let me see if I need to be doing STV. Oh, that's shortly after I finish the video. But essentially, I've imported my entire gear set as it is currently into 60 upgrades. Just to make sure that the stats here actually sort of all match up, which they do. You can pause on the screen to check. The only thing I don't understand why is crit chance here shown 1868, whereas here it's 19.2, and this is with talents applied. But the point I want to show you here is to first of all show obviously how 60 upgrades is pretty cool to compare, but then also just to make sure that it's calculating my stats correctly. So I can comfortably tell you that if you currently put mental dexterity on this current 40 level bracket or on my character just now, I will be getting a flat 69 attack power at all times. And then if we actually put Wind Fury as well as Rock Biter applied to ourselves, obviously Spirit of the Alpha is not going to give you attack power, so we're ignoring that. So basically what we're going to get from mental dexterity is 69 attack power flat, and then also 30% of this attack power converting into spell damage. Now this is nearly 900, which means 30% of it is pretty much nearly 300. It's about 270 to 80. Now you're telling me that on my enhancement melee class I'm going to be getting about 280 spell power, where my actual, like, let me show you, whereas my actual elemental shaman, because yeah, I have two shamans, with not beast gear, but I'd say I'm like probably 4 pieces away from full beast on elemental as well. On my elemental shaman, with pretty much all the best gear in the game aside from again a couple pieces, I currently have 200 and we'll see in a very quick second. Let's see, log out, shock medic. We are going to jump over here and we're going to see how very quickly my elemental shaman has 270 spell power. Again, not the best gear, but more or less close to the best gear. So so basically we are going to somehow receive as much spell power as a fully geared elemental shaman is at this level on 40 if we were given mental dexterity currently, including obviously the change to Spirit of the Alpha. Now all this means that probably instead of super solo relying on the melee attack power and the melee damage to kill bosses, and obviously like in terms of like PvE where about 80% of our damage is melee damage, now we are getting our melee damage nerfed, but we are also getting a lot of spell power, potentially increasing our spell damage. So yeah, we have to see how much this like sort of full change or all these changes in runes sort of end up being in terms of balance and how Enhancement Shaman will feel, because currently obviously it's feeling broken, it's feeling like the best class in Season of Discovery. I should probably call this season of Shaman. Like I'm gonna do an STV in 20 minutes or 50 minutes and generally just one-shotting people there. I'm like generally always be top damage in like any form of pug or guild raid I go to, so like it's just a joke, right? Like there's so much scaling currently, so yeah, we have to see. On to the sort of final bit that I want to guys discuss with you, and this is basically some items, sort of like a previous raid set that you can probably gun for as soon as you get level 50, and then potentially look at a couple of other like sort of confirmed as well as data mined items from Wowhead as well to just see potentially what tools and what nice toys we are going to be getting to play around with, because what I love about WoW is that there's so much variation. Like you can change so much gear and so much items, so much talents to always make the game feel different. So on to the Pre-BIS, right? So big disclaimer in terms of looking at this gear set, guys, and I'll go over the pieces as I usually do one by one. A lot of these items are from our current phase, which is not a big difference, or sorry, not a big shock as it was with the previous phase, simply because those new Gnome Regan, BFD, and then I'm sure Sunken Temple items are so like super overtuned compared to quest gear and dungeon gear at the exact same level bracket, right? That they're most likely just going to carry over the next phase, right? But there are still a couple new pieces, and we're going to actually, after we finish up that, see how the whole sort of mental dexterity mats end up at level 50 with what I would say full Pre-BIS, right? So Going into the helm slot, no surprise here. We are actually retaining the epic from phase 1. Now, there is a very good chance that red resistance scale hood is going to actually be better than the current glowing Nairo linked cow. Although every single enhancement shaman I've ever seen has played with this, if not for the proc, then for just the fact that there's like almost no point having this in your bag and just swapping it for like the extra attack power when this is on cooldown. But I guess you can do that. I'm probably going to craft this as well just to see how it ends up on level 50. But again, important to remember that from now on every single intellect point on any item is actually attack power. So if you look at red resistance scale hood, this 32 attack power is actually 42 attack power because you have 10 intellect on top there as well, right? So that's cool. If you already have your glowing linked cow, keep that. You can craft the scale one as well, since the Gnomergan recipes are going to be cheaper. And then if you for some reason don't have that, I don't know what to tell you, you can probably get the item from Zul'Farrak here. Is not bad. Scarlet Monastery item is still valid. There's obviously going to be the PvP set, which is not turbo great, but it's not bad as well, right? Like this even says it's better than glowing linked cow. So I mean, yeah, this gives you like 22 attack power from the strength and then 7 more, so that's 29 attack power. Yeah, pretty much worse than that. So let's just put the scale hood there. But yeah, again, between the two crafted and then the PvP items and the Zul'Farrak items, you have a couple of options there. Onto the neck. Pretty sad that we are essentially being forced to replace the very nice epic from Gnomergan with a blue raid item that basically gives you exactly 2 attack power instead of 6 stamina. If anything, this might push me to tank next phase because I like my epics, so I don't want to replace the epic with this blue item that gives you 2 attack power. Like, come on, this is a joke. So, and yeah, as well as in terms of pre-BIS, it's just that, right? So I'm sure most of you already have it. Like, there's no like questions, right? Everybody has that. On to shoulders. So this is actually the first item that you gotta sort of think about. Obviously, you have your beast from this phase, which is Troxlayer Pauldrons. And now Troxlayer Pauldrons are going to be giving us 22 attack power plus 5 intellect, which means 27 attack power and then 12 agility, which is about 1.2 crit, right? So 27 attack power, 1.2 crit. And if you take a look at, for example, the PvP items, because really that's the only other option, the PvP or the worst PvP set from the new reputation. What we have on the PvP slot actually is 9 strength, which is 18 attack power, plus 5, that's 23 attack power, and then obviously the 1 crit with spells and attacks. Now noted that this gives spell crit to both spells and attacks, whereas essentially the agility from Pauldrons only gives it to attacks. So if you don't have these, or you have them and you're going to be doing the whole 110 silver coins STV turn-in on Wednesday, so once the game launches on Thursday, you're already rank 7 or close. I think you actually exactly rank 7, so you can actually buy the entire set as soon as you hit 50. Then you can also try these out. These are not bad. Troxlayers are not bad as well, so I'll probably, let's just put these here so we see if we can actually get the set bonus, which is only stamina. So now that I've said it, let's just move back to Troxlayer. On to the back, you have the bags from phase 1, Blood Drenched and Dismantling Drapes. And then also you have from Blackrock Depths, 25% drop chance of a boss. Really nice bag, 6 strength, 14 agility. I feel like this is just the best, so you just go with that. And then really, if you compare it to the raid one, is actually a single agility more. So this is very underwhelming, I want to say. Like, I don't know if again all these items are final stats and all that, but if you're telling me day 1 I'm gonna get a blue item and then the only upgrade I get in the raid is 1 agility more on it, underwhelming. But let's go with it, right? This one. On the chest slot, actually it's pretty straightforward. It's actually the tier sets, I feel like, from phase 1. You can actually go with the Myxicologist Tunic from Blackrock Depths, which is pretty much the same. You're trading off the 1 strength for 2 agility. But then also, if you have collected your leather set, you might have the set bonus for critical. Or if you've maybe made it played as a tank last phase, then probably you've actually purchased the male version of the set, which is also good, right? So between, I feel like the three here, you're not gonna go wrong. So I have both sets, but I'm probably going to do, in terms of damage set, on 50 in my first sunken tempo, insulated chest guard. Going on to bracers, pretty straightforward. So the best bit you can get phase 1 in terms of an item, not from Warsome Gouge, is the one from Gnomergan. And then obviously if you have exalted with Warsome Gouge, you can straight up obviously change the 40 version of that with the 50 version of that. And then in terms of the actual difference, we have here 9 strength, which is 18 attack power and a lot of agility. And here you have 34 attack power with 6 strength, 6 intellect, which makes 40 attack power. So you're basically choosing whether you want the nice mix of crit and attack power or the full attack power version. And I feel like both are good, so you'd go with any one of those. I funnily do not have Volsaga Exalted yet. I'm like a few 10k away from it, so I've kept this for myself. Weapons we'll get into a second. Moving on to gloves. Gloves wise, the ones from phase 1 are not bad, but there's actually, this is one of the slots where we have quite a lot of new options. There's like, I feel like a quest here, 18 strength, very flat attack power gloves. There's another 2 set of gloves that gives flat attack power, flat strength and flat agility, therefore attack power and critical. I feel like, again, if hit is too much of an issue, and if and again, I don't know if Blizzard have confirmed that, but obviously in phase 2 bosses are only 2 levels above you, which means less crit required. If bosses become 3 level above you, then there will be more hit required, at which point you might actually value crit a lot more. But then obviously Blizzard have done the whole plus weapon skills added into the game, where like the ratios are no longer relevant. Every class can get up to 2 weapons, you can get up to plus 5 skills in 2 different weapons. So from that sense, again, I don't really want to be resorting to the hit versions or the hit items from phase 1 and phase 2. So what I'm going to be doing is getting the PvP set item here now. This is actually really good because the 8 strength is 16 attack power and 5 intellect 21 attack power and the 1 crit. If you compare this to like this one, which is the highest strength and agi item at this level, you are seeing that this is basically slightly less more attack power, but the critical is not spell crit, right, as I mentioned before. And then also, if you are actually doing the STV coin stack and then you are able to obtain the entire set on the second you hit 50, then obviously you'll be getting the attack set bonus and the stamina set bonuses, which very unlikely you put 6 pieces on, but probably good enough that you put 3 pieces on if you especially don't have every single item in Gnomergan. And then especially if you're tanking as well, the stamina will be very nice, as well as these items being male. So compared to these ones and basically every other sort of agility and strength gloves, right? So I will be going with these, but there's a couple other ones. I don't know why gloves of Holy Might keep getting pushed so much. I feel like obviously the crit and the attack power are comparable to what I've just shown as stats for the PvP item. And this is a phase 2 item, really, right? So this is not a bad item whatsoever. The thing is, I went over the bosses in Sunken Temple in Classic WoW, and there's only the bosses where you fight the 2 trolls together. One of them is an undead. Everything else in the raid is not undead, which means you're not getting the extra attack power, which means this is probably falling off compared to like flat stats. Especially considering Gloves of Holy Might don't have stamina, they don't have intellect, they don't have flat stats aside from the crit and the attack power. So I'll be going with the PvP item. Feels good. On to the belt. Funnily enough, this is the Beast belt from phase 2 into phase 3, and I feel like all the way into probably phase 4. This belt is ridiculous. It gives you spell hit and attack hit. It gives you attack power, and now the intellect is also getting converted into another 4 attack power. So if you compare these to like a pure belt from Blackrock Depths for level 50, which simply gives you 46 attack power, and you compare this to 28 attack power and 1 spell hit and spell crit, spell hit and melee hit, there's just no comparison. You can obviously be getting, if you have a Rati Basin and Honored, very easy with the STV event, right? Be getting the level 50 versions of the belts. But as you can see here, even the data mined items from the raid are simply just giving attack power and then strength and critical, right? They're not giving hit, and they're not giving that much attack power more than Dark Vision Girdle. So this is straight up beast. Pants, very similar discussion as with the chest. The sets from phase 1, if you have those, if you are managing the 2 sets, the 3 sets, you know how this goes. If not, there's leatherworking. What is this? Leatherworking crafted? No, that's bad. The PvP set, Stone Guards Mail leg plates are actually pretty good. 12 strength is 24 attack power, and the intellect 3 36 attack power with the crit to spells and melee attacks. This is potentially not bad. Obviously, if you're not playing with insulated leg guards or the electromantic set, the mail set, you're gonna be losing on the hit. So this is something to consider. But yeah, from that sense, I feel like you'll be going with insulated until maybe you get the actual tier set from the raid, or you sort of mix and match all the other pieces of your gear set where you're no longer getting the bonus from an insulated set or electromantic set, and then you straight up replace it with something that just gives more offensive stats, and you sort of lose on the hit, right? Because the hit is really the big thing on these items, right? So I'll keep this as a Pre-BIS, right? And then with this set you actually get nicely 2 sets. You can do the male version as well. Boots is actually very, very straightforward. There is just boots that drop from Blackrock Depths, 10 strength, 11 agility, and the stamina. This is simply the most offensive, as well as really with stamina. I would even say tank / defensive option until you get your tier set from the raid. Everything else in phase 2 is also comparable and good. So Gnomebot, Insulated, Blackforge Greaves are all fine. Sandstalker I'm not gonna sort of recommend because it doesn't have stamina. Spirit is useless, and then there's agility, so well, more agility than strength, so I'll just farm Shade Fiend boots. Shade Fiend boots, probably, it's how it's spelled. And then onto rings. Very easy. Warsong Outriders level 50, you know the drill, just upgrade your ring. It's Beast phase 2, it's now Beast phase 3, very, very nice. Oh well, it's not Beast, but it's definitely Pre-BIS, right? And then in the second slot again, very, very straightforward, guys. Everybody that's played Quasi Quao on a melee knows this. Blackstone Ring, Maraudon Princess. You're gonna be farming this until you get it. 24% drop chance is not true. This is more like 2% drop chance, if you like. I've spent so many dungeons, so much time farming this trash on enhancement in Quasi Quao. Now I'm finally gonna get it, and actually it's gonna feel good. Hit and attack power, nothing to debate. Again, hit is always the best stat, especially if you're fighting bosses +3 on your level and not +2. If it's +2, it's a bit less good, but still fine. And then attack power is good. If you see, compared to Legionnaires Band, it's the same attack power and 10 agility for 1 hit. You trade any day of the week. Obviously the raid items are actually just as good. They're giving hit to both melee and spells, and they're essentially giving the same attack power, so you're basically replacing those two with 2 better versions of Blackstone as you go into the sort of raid and get the raid drops. Trinkets, again, very straightforward. From phase 1 you can do the double trinkets from Gnomer and BFD, and then if you have them, of course, and then you are just doing a quest in Hinterlands that gives you Rune of the Guard Captain, which is another attack power plus hit item, which is amazing, and then you straight up just replace the BFD trinket with it. It's more attack power, it has hit, it's very good. One thing to note is that this data mined trinket, actually in the data mine page with all the gear, which I think I've closed, doesn't show the critical, I think. It shows the hit or vice versa. Now, if this item ends up giving melee hit, melee crit, spell hit, spell crit, is going to be just the best item in the game for trinkets, probably for like every DPS class. Like even casters need the hit, and now you're getting a crit as well. And for a hybrid like enhancement, spell enhancement, call it whatever, if this is as it is written right now, is just going to be your straight beast 2 of those. But then of course let's not get ahead of ourselves and finish our Pre-BIS list here. Finally, weapons. Now weapons, your weapons from phase 1 are good. Mecha Torque, Arcano Shredder is one of my favorite items in Season of Discovery. Well, at least the icon is. The weapon actually looks like trash, but the effect, the stats, everything is so good about it. I waited it for so long, I don't want to replace it, but I'll have to. And in terms of main hand, the easiest way to replace this is Blackrock Depths Boss Grizzle, drops Grizzle Skinner. It's faster main hand, but it has more damage than the Mechano Shredder, and then it also has more damaging stats. 8 strength, 6 agility is nothing to scoff at. This is likely going to outperform your Mecha Torque any day of the week, even if you consider the proc on Mecha Torque, right? And this is the best damaging weapon that you can just farm yourself or do a quest. World drop items, Hammer of Northern Wing is very nice as well, like more damage, and then a proc, which I think from Classic WoW, from what I remember, is kind of trash, but might be worthwhile. And then also there is another BOE, which is the Bone Snapper, which is also 11 strength on a slower weapon with comparable damage to Grizzle Skinner. So if you want to be pedantic, I'd probably say this is your Pre-BIS, but realistically speaking, you're going to farm a dungeon, then spend hundreds of golds on the first couple of those, or rather for sniping a couple of those as soon as phase 3 goes live, and those actually start dropping, right? So from that sense, guys, Grizzle Skinner. Now, if you are looking at all the other items and wondering why I'm not considering them, is because those are items from phase 3, as they don't have a source. So we're just basically looking at the best in terms of damage. And there's obviously a couple other options here, as you can see. However, this is phase 3, Dawn Edge. This is crafted from Blacksmith Master X Smith, which I believe the profession specializations are not in this phase, or at least not fully unlockable and all that, because they'll be changed. So this is not available. And then there's another BOE with random enchantment, which probably like very expensive if you find a good one. And then Viking Warhammer as well. Sort of comparable if you see to Grizzle's Skinner. However, the offensive stats are not as good. And the damage per sec is not as good, right? So again, straight up Pre-BIS, straight to the point, Grizzle Skinner. Offhand is sad. It really is sad because Dawn's Edge, as I've just explained, is probably not going to be in the game. Shadow Blade is BOE. Yeah, good luck on that. Another couple BOEs. You can potentially get this dagger from Warsong. Like it has good amount of agility and then good amount of like damage per sec. However, it's very fast. And if you can see here, this item, a BOE axe with 2.6 speed, which is slightly better in terms of damage per sec than Cogmaster Claw, are your only 3 options. I've put Cogmaster Claw because it's insane Gnomergan item that hopefully you all guys have it by now, which means like you're not going to stress on your offhand item too much. Yeah, it would be nice to upgrade it, and yeah, Scout's Blade have 5 damage per second more. However, it is very, very quick, Scout's Blade, and then well, again, does it really matter though? Because like we'll see how our weapon imbues go if you do play Flame Tongue, because it's just better. That could be something, or you just straight up put your Rock Biter and then you don't care about the Flame Tongue damage because it was already nerfed, right? So if your sorry, not Flame Tongue, Lava Lash. So if your Lava Lash is not doing as much bonus offhand damage, then you don't really need your offhand to be like the slowest high-end damage weapon. So maybe you go with a dagger, right? So and this will be free in terms of buying it from a vendor if you have the rep already. So from that sense, this is your choice between those 3. I've personally went with the Claw. So yeah, this is basically where we are at now. Finally, with our previous set, right? Finally, I want to show you guys how basically the mental dexterity maths add up. The one thing that I need to put a big caveat currently on this set is that obviously 60 upgrades is auto filling me the best enchants. I'm not going to have the raid enchant on shoulders. How do I unequip that? I do not know if every single other enchant here, yeah, Libram of Rusting, Burning Steps, yeah, I'm not going to have that day one. Am I going to have 15 strength enchants on weapons? Are those even in the game? Are they going to cost too much? I don't know. I will keep the rest of the enchants, as these are the auto field enchants for the maximum allowed skill of enchanting in the next phase and all other professions, which is 300. What this means is that these numbers might end up not, or rather these enchants might not end up being available, which means, you know, numbers are not going to be exactly the same if you actually achieve this Pre-BIS set. But yeah, what I want to show here, right, is where we are at 672 attack power. Now, what we of course need to consider right away, because I'm never not going to do that, is that we put a Rock Biter on our offhand. The next level of Rock Biter gives you 471 attack power, which means that 470 and 670 is actually 1140. Mental dexterity adds our intellect to it, which is 100, which means we get to 1240-ish attack power. And now if mental dexterity takes 30% of that and puts into spell power, we add up, we get to about 410, is it? 400 and something spell power, guys. Yeah, that's 410 spell power for free, just because you pick a rune. And that rune also obviously gives you some extra attack power on top of what your straight up character stat will say. Obviously, this the spell damage from your spells is not going to get increased by Spirit of the Wolf, as it is not currently either. However, putting 400 spell power to it will definitely change it. I do not know if Lava Burst is not going to end up being meta in offhand, in glove slot as well, since Lava Lash was nerfed. We'll have to see. So yeah, this is basically your stats and how your characters character stats are gonna look like if you achieve this Pre-BIS. And if you see a lot of these items you either already have or are going to be, just spam a couple BRDs, spam probably more than a couple Maraudons, and then make sure you have your STV turns in before the phase goes out, and then you pretty much have full Pre-BIS, which is fine. Phase 2 was more or less the same, although there were more than a few items in Scarlet Monastery for us. So yeah, from that sense, this is your sort of Pre-BIS, or at least what I'm going to be gunning for. I'm not going to be doing a sort of full beast list and all that right now. Video's too long. We don't know all the final version of those items, all the PvP items. All the profession crafted items are going to be looking very weird. We don't know their procs, how good they are. However, a couple items I can go over very quickly. There is from the Nightmare Incursion new PV event. There will be a trinket that is on use, giving you 70 attack power, 5-minute cooldown for short fights, and probably, well, as soon as the raid becomes on farm, and all fights are short fights, because let's be honest, this is classic. I don't think anything will take too long. Obviously, in Gnomorgan, only the last two bosses, because of phases and council fight, were longer. So from that sense, I feel like this might be really good, especially for parsing, especially with Dark Fair and everything and everyone popping off. This looks very nice. And then the other items I wanted to, so the PvP set, do I really need to go over it? Like, as we saw, not all items scale necessarily too great or compare too great to existing BFD items. Not BFD, Gnomorgan items. But of course, the entire set gives intellect, which means more attack power from our new rune. So keep an eye out on those, and obviously for PvP they're just going to be the best because of the stamina and all around the set bonuses as well. So that's cool. And then finally the STV items, which were updated as well, or rather new ones introduced. Rather unfortunate. Those are very underwhelming. The relic is fine. This is probably what we're gonna use as our relic for PV enhancement, because you are obviously not gonna get a healing trinket, and you're most likely, probably most definitely, like it's looking like 100%, guys, we are not going to be doing two-hander PV quite yet. Not that I don't like it, I actually love it, I want it back, but we do need a couple more runes and potentially some scaling changes around the existing runes as well to make this any viable, really. So yeah, I feel like this was, guys, pretty much everything I wanted to go over. We'll see. Obviously, phase 3 comes in a couple of days. I'll be doing some guides. I'll be doing some beast lists. I'll have my overall opinions over on YouTube with future videos. And yeah, thanks for listening, and I will see you next time around. Goodbye.